What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Media Goose channel. It is I, the Media Goose, your friend Ryan, and the goose is loose, baby. Ha! I am here today to finally bring you my thoughts on Stranger Things Season 2. Yeah, it's a little late. I may have missed the Stranger Things wave when season 5 dropped, but that's all right. I am still going to make my way through all 5 seasons. So with season 2, they had a lot to live up to. Stranger Things season 1 really broke through to the mainstream. It was like a pop culture breakthrough. It was huge. All of these kids were getting renowned for their performances from season 1. Winona Ryder was back. David Harbour, this was the first role I had ever seen him in. So after season 1, there were a lot of expectations coming into season 2. When you do something great once, that's not enough for the consumer. The consumer always wants more. And I think the smartest thing that the creators of Stranger Things did was not trying to just copy the same template from season 1. I think you see a lot of horror sequels that do that. They follow the same beats. While they may be different for the circumstances of the story, structurally they follow a lot of the same path. And Stranger Things Season 2 does not do that. Stranger Things Season 2 is about post-traumatic stress, PTSD, in relation to the events of season 1. The first 5 episodes of the show are devastating and at times hard to watch because we see these characters we came to love in season 1 going through all of the intense trauma that it caused. And this season really takes the time to show you the way that season 1 impacted every group in this show. The kids, the teens, the adults, Hawkins' lab, all the way through the show it is felt. The first, I would say, 5 episodes of the season are very much character-centric. I felt as though it was kind of similar to season 2 of The Walking Dead on the farm, where it became a lot more about interpersonal dynamics and the relationships between characters and seeing how the effects of season 1 impacted them to where they are now. Season 2 starts off a year later, and we start off with the same group of 4 kids: Dustin, Lucas, Mike, and Will, and they're all going to the arcade. And this scene really quickly shows you the differences that are going to be evident in this season. All of 3 out of the 4 kids are riding their bikes to the arcade while Will is dropped off by his mother. So Joyce's PTSD is manifesting in becoming paranoid and incredibly protective of Will. She felt guilty for not knowing her son was missing last season, so now it's the opposite. She's almost like a helicopter mom who won't let Will out of her sight. And then when we're at the actual arcade, we see, in the same way that the D&D game from season 1 framed the whole season, the arcade does the same thing. Because we see Dustin and Lucas arguing over the princess in the game Dragon Lair, and they spend their whole season over fixating on Max. And I do think that's partially PTSD. I think that part of trauma as a child, as somebody who went through trauma as a child, is the way you redirect your energy instead of being present with that pain. Your mind protects you because it knows you can't process that yet. So Lucas and Dustin, go all in on this romantic side of things. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the season. I think they really nail Dustin and Lucas trying to go after Max, and I love their dynamics together. I think it's really great. Mike, we can see from the very beginning, is still really missing Elle and is really affected by it. He's called her every day, hoping that she'll respond. So right away, we're seeing how all of these kids, their lives are different now. And man, then with Elle, I mean, Elle might be the thing that I criticize the most this season. Maybe not even criticize, but I don't know that this is how I would have handled it. I think I almost would have written her off completely until she walked through the door at the end of episode 8, and maybe you do like a side season, like a short contained 3-episode side season where you explain what Elle did, but I didn't think it served the character Elle very well the way she was handled in this season. It almost felt like she was tied up in Hopper's development rather than her own. But I will say as well, when we first meet Elle at the beginning of episode 2, we see her come back from the upside down. She comes through it like a baby being born, coming out of the womb. And she goes directly to Mike. And she sees the cops and she sees everything happening. And she connects that as her fault and she takes guilt for it. And the moment that Elle and Mike have in that window is devastating. It is heartbreaking. Because in that moment, Elle decides her own happiness doesn't matter. She would rather seclude herself in the woods than put Mike and her friends at risk. That's a real friend. And then we have Hopper, who ends up hiding Elle eventually and ends up kind of imprisoning her there because he can't lose another daughter. So he becomes very close to Elle in this season in the cabin, and the closer they become, the more protective he becomes due to his trauma with his daughter. So we see all of the effects of season 1. And we also have a lot of new characters that add a lot to this season. Talking about the effects of season 1 and new characters, let me get to Hawkins' lab, because for the first few episodes, they're very... they tell you a lot. Dr. Owens in particular. Hey, I'm the good guy here. We got rid of all of those old people that did the things they did. And the thing I picked up, anybody who has to keep telling you you can trust them, you can't trust them. But then by the end of the season, Owens does turn around and is a key contributor to getting everybody out. Well, almost everyone. Bringing me to another new character, Bob. Bob was a breath of fresh air. Bob was the most positive source of energy in this entire season. Bob represented a chance at normalcy for Joyce and the entire Byers family. I talked about how in season 1, the Byers are the outsiders, the others, the freaks. The way they have their argument in the middle of the town square and Jonathan's like, the show's over. So Bob isn't just normalcy for Joyce. He's normalcy for that entire family. And I remember when I first watched this season when it came out, I thought at the beginning Bob might be a plug from the Hawkins lab, the way Jonathan and Nancy get cornered by random civilians who are undercovers. I thought that might be who Bob was. And I'm so glad I wasn't right on that, because Bob was fantastic. The empathy he shows for Will and Jonathan and Joyce, he really tries to connect with them. He goes above and beyond. And every season of Stranger Things has a B-list character die to save an A-list character. Barb in season 1, and now it's Bob in season 2. Wow, the first 3 seasons, the deaths are all B names. Barb, Bob, and Billy. That's interesting. Then it's Eddie, and then who was it in season 5? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But, so also with Hawkins' lab and Dr. Owens, Will is going there for visits now based on his time in the Upside Down. And my biggest takeaway in this section was that Will now represents Elle and her experience. Except Will is almost luckier because he has a life and Elle never had a life. That was her zero. That was ground zero for Elle, Hawkins' lab. Will has context. He has emotions that he can communicate. But this whole season, I really do think Will is the other as Elle was in season 1. And Noah Schnapp, he could have been nominated for an Emmy for his performance this season. In season 1, he was away for a lot of it, and he didn't get to be a part of the story in that way, but in this season, oh my goodness, he blew me away. The everything with him being possessed by the Mind Flayer was horrifying. From the beginning of the season, when it's starting to get its hooks, but it's not completely in, to later in the season when Will is basically gone and the Mind Flayer and the Hive Mind are completely present. And it's terrifying. Noah does a breathtaking job as a performer. Then another thing, D'Artagnan. We get the Demodogs in this series. And I think that's also kind of a symptom of PTSD, because Dustin should have known that Dart was of the Upside Down. And I think because of his feeling of being the runt of his group, the desire to be protective of a vulnerable thing, he does that for Dart in the same way that they did that for Elle in season 1. They protected her. There's a lot of dynamics of protection in this show, and one of them in this season is Dustin protecting Dart from the rest of his friends, because he knows what it's like to be the runt. And it's really beautiful because it ends up saving them at the end. And the big bad is the Mind Flayer. The big bad of the entire series is the Mind Flayer, frankly. And I think the Mind Flayer was excellent. The way I felt about the Mind Flayer in this season, so in Halloween 1, there's the idea that Michael Myers is overtaken by like this evil, and you don't know what happened or how it happened or why it happened. I kind of feel like the experience that Michael Myers would have had is similar to the one Will had under the possession of the Mind Flayer. And it was terrifying. There was one scene at the beginning of episode 4 between Joyce and Will that felt like a child explaining to their mother that they were a victim of sexual assault. And it destroyed me. It broke me down. And the final 3 episodes, 6, 8, and 9, I'll get to 7. Those 3 seasons, those 3 episodes, so the first 5, very character-centric. The last 3, we're back to the stakes of last season. We're back to the horror. I feel like we went away from horror for the first 5 episodes and went a little bit more towards sci-fi and drama because of the PTSD aspects. The final 3 episodes of the season go back to the horror vibes in an incredible way. There are like multiple exorcism scenes for Will where they have to try to get the Mind Flayer out of him. There's a scene where they all try connecting with Will by giving him personal stories that ripped my heart out. All of them made me cry. Joyce talking about the rainbow bridge that he drew, Jonathan talking about the night their father left, and then Mike, Finn Wolfhard, when the camera cuts to him, he's rolling tears. I feel like this might be the best acting this show ever does. This, between Noah Schnapp, Finn Wolfhard, the performances in this season are outstanding because they're more vulnerable and affected. And it just blew me away. 2 new characters I haven't touched on yet. Billy and Max. At times, I thought Max wasn't being written as a true woman, like an independent woman. She was kind of serving the men of the story. And I felt the same way about Elle at a certain point with Hopper. And I love Max. I think a lot more of her... I didn't realize... I got seasons 2 and 3 mixed up a lot. A lot more of her arc is in the following seasons. But in this season, she's a little bit of a plot device for the boys, and I don't love that. But when they eventually get her involved in episode 6, The Spy, and Lucas tries to tell her everything and she throws it back in his face, that's when she becomes like a real fleshed out character and starts to be the Max we come to know and love. But for a little bit, she felt a little bit like a plot device for our men, and I don't like that don't minimize female characters just to build up the men of your story, or the boys in this case. And Billy is like season 1 Steve, but they didn't want to redeem him. I felt like at times the performance went a little, like, maybe far on how niche it was, but it was very of the era, very 80s, very Rob Lowe, very Kiefer Sutherland, so I get it. And I think Dacre Montgomery gave an amazing performance, and dude's hot as hell. Jesus Christ, excuse my language. The scene with him walking around with his ass in those pants and all the girls checking him out, same. And yeah, I really loved season 2 of Stranger Things. I think that it's not as driven as season 1, but we know our characters now and we spend more time with them. And once the final 3 episodes pick up and we start, the horror is back. The stakes are back, and it's incredible. And I prefer the amount of emotional weight in this season. I think it's more challenging as an actor to show traumatized than anything else, and all of the performances in this season were amazing. But as the season comes to an end, man, so I wonder if it would have been better to write Elle out of this season completely, like I said earlier. And at the end of the day, this season is kind of like a side quest for Elle, and I don't love that, because episode 7, which I will now get into, when I watched it, I didn't like it, and I tried to defend it. And now that I've seen the entire series, I hate it, because Callie never pays off. There's never a turn for her. She's a gang leader. She's awful to Elle. She manipulates her. She uses her the same way Papa did, the same way that she's accusing Hopper of. Callie is awful, and I think it's a really bad job writing a female character, and it kind of feels like men trying to write a female character, and I think there's a lot of that in this season. That whole episode, I don't really love. I don't think it was necessary, especially realizing Callie doesn't have much significance to the rest of the show. It was wasted. I think it would have been better off not doing it based on how they ended up using it, because they wasted Callie in the final season and never brought her back otherwise. So 8 and that whole side quest is the worst part of this season for me. And I think maybe the reason it's not better than season 1, because I do think they're damn near equal footing, but I'll still put season 1 ahead of it, because there was nothing season 1 did that bothered me. And the fact that you opened season 2 with Callie showing her powers, and then you didn't get back to it until episode 7, right after the episode The Spy, where things started to pick up. So now that stakes are rising and you're getting your audience hooked, you divert to like a bottle episode that doesn't matter. So that aside, I love this season. I think all of these characters got further developed. Oh, another point. Lucas having to deal with racism in this season. Billy's a racist dickhead. Excuse my language. I probably shouldn't be throwing around swears like that, but he doesn't give a more obvious reason than he is just racist. And then also, Lucas calls out Mike for being racist, for thinking he would just be the black Ghostbuster. And I really love that they had Lucas do that and not just accept it and move on, because one of Lucas's defining character traits is the way that he will stand up for the things he believes, like he proved in season 1. But yeah, I love season 2 of Stranger Things. I think it's a really great follow-up, because the effects of season 1 are evident, and they don't brush past them. You spend time. You see Jonathan and Nancy. You see Steve. I didn't even touch on Steve the babysitter. The greatest kind of turn in a character ever, from the douchebag Steve from season 1 to he's dumped in the first 3 episodes, really, or he kind of dumps Nancy and allows her to go off with Jonathan and accepts that. And it's just a really great season of television, and I think people might look at it the same way as they looked at season 2 of The Walking Dead, which it was a little boring, too much care. Get to the world ending stuff, the stakes, and I'm not that way. I prefer grounded, personal stakes. And I think this is probably the last season where it is grounded at all. So I really loved it. And I think it is a close second right behind Stranger Things season 1. So, what did you guys think of Stranger Things season 2? Let me know down below. I thought it was fantastic. You have Elle, who gets her like Jean Grey moment at the end of the season, vanquishing the Mind Flayer, but we know he comes back in season 2 or season 3, and I'm really excited to watch season 3 because I think I confused some stories from seasons 2 and 3 and like interlocked them. So I'm really excited to go back now and take it all in. I think knowing what I know now about the end of the series, I think season 3 is a pivot point where they might jump the shark a little bit, where it's no longer a grounded story. Now there's Russians under a mall, and it gets pretty crazy. So I'm excited to watch it again and talk to you guys about it. I'm going to have that video up a week from today, so I have some time to watch the episodes. Let me know what you guys thought of season 2. Who was your favorite character this season? I think it's probably, for me, I'd say Dustin or Steve. And I hated Steve in season 1, so the fact that they earned me loving him by the end of season 2 says a lot about the arc of the character. He takes an ass beating for those kids, for Lucas in particular. So, respect to Steve. Thank you guys for hanging out today. Let me know what your favorite episode of last season was. For me, it was The Spy. That episode was insane. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video, comment, share, and subscribe. The Goose is out. Ha!